Okay, we're live.
We're live?
Yeah.
Hey, we're live. So super excited to be here again. We just finished up a great stream with Tom Antos, and hope you're able to be a part of that. If you were, you're going to have a leg up on this stream because we're going to be asking very similar questions around Laowa lenses to be able to get you a prize from our sponsor, Venus Optics. So if you haven't had a chance, go get on their site, Venus, venuslens.net, and we'll Slack. My mind's all messed up, guys. I can't do this multiple streams in a row, but bear with me. We're excited to be here. We will message out that website. So get on Venus's site and we'll have some questions about the Laowa lenses, and you'll have your chance to get a swag kit. So if you didn't see, let's actually get right into that. So what we've got is this fun little phone tripod that is actually flexible. You can bend it and put it around anything, very similar to a Gorilla Pod. It's going to work really well for lightweight phones, or there's a 1/4-20 plate on here. So if you have a small camera as well, you could use this guy. And that little plate even quick releases. So cool little thing to add to your kit. Great to just slide in like the water bottle holder on a backpack. That's a great way to get around. Everything's going to come in this Laowa tote case, and they have this nice fabric, but really well built and padded lens pouch. So it's got a drawstring. It's nice to keep everything tight and compact in there. Can't have a swag kit without some actual wearable swags. We've got the Laowa t-shirt here, and finally you're going to get a $20 off coupon for your next lens purchase. So any little bit goes a long way. There's a lot of things to purchase as filmmakers, and so thanks to our friends at Venus Optics for giving out these kits. So we just gave away 5 in the last stream. We've got 5 more to do this stream, so be prepared for that. On top of that, we have another great sponsor for this episode, and that's Polar Pro. Polar Pro makes a wide range of products that are super helpful to filmmakers. The thing I love about all their products is they're very intentional, well designed, well manufactured, and well delivered. They come in great cases and great packaging, and it just is very, very thoughtful. So we'll be talking about the filtration systems that we'll be using on our grounded production for Your Story Matters. So we look forward to doing that. And everyone, this stream is just me, so you're going to be talking to me. If you have any questions, what we're going to be talking about today is the lens selection for the grounded production, as well as the filtration that we'll be using, why we're using it, and how that applies to our story. So hit up the comments and let me know what questions you have in particular about this. We're just gonna have this open chat here for about the next half hour or so, and we'll do these giveaways along the way. And on that note, I want to start off with a giveaway. Let's do that. It's always fun to get things kicked off. So like I said, if you were at the previous stream, you have a leg up on this one, but we're going to go back. So if you're on venuslenses.net, I've got a couple questions for you. And the first question is, what is the widest cinema lens Laowa makes? So of their cinema lens category, what's the widest lens that they make? First person to respond in the comments with that will get you hooked up with our first swag kit that we're giving away in this stream. So as we wait for that info, I'm going to talk to you about the different lenses that we have. Of course, like I've mentioned before, we've got the Laowa lens, the 12 millimeter. This is a fantastic lens. The first thing you're going to notice with any of Laowa's lenses is the build quality. You'll hear that term a lot in filmmaking, just the build quality. And it's so much more than it just being built nice. Like, why is that an advantage, right? I mean, because obviously if it's built nice, it's going to cost more to make and cost more to then buy. But the advantages are, one, it's going to last a lot longer. Typically, that means it's going to be, in general, tighter tolerances. Now, tolerance is a huge thing in manufacturing, and especially in filmmaking, where the more refined it is, the better it's going to be to perform its function. So a lens has a ton of moving parts. If you've ever seen a cross section of a lens, there's so many things going on inside of here. And so from the smoothness of the focus throw, right? the more expensive a lens gets, typically the better that's going to be. And then same with the iris control, right? So just really quality products. And this whole lens is metal, and obviously all the elements are glass and high quality. And so even this lens cap, it just slides on, and it's machined itself and laser engraved with the logo. Really nice touch. So love that. And then you get in this wonderfully creamy element here. Let's try and get this in focus here. So very fun lens. Okay, so we've got our first winner here. And so that's going to be Kiwi Meets German. So Kiwi Meets German, you're a first winner of the kit. Awesome. Looking forward to getting this mailed out to you. So depending on the platform you're on, just DM us or shoot us an email. We'll get that email posted in the comments here. So it's just right at the top. And you can shoot me off your shipping information. We'll get that out to you as soon as possible. So, okay, just looking at a question here that just came in. So the question is, have I tried using the Polar Pro base camp on rails with the Komodo? I haven't been able to find the answer, really holding back from ordering the base camp. Okay, so I haven't done it myself. I know that they do make an adapter for rails for it. Now, the main thing with any matte box, and I'll pull this matte box out. We talked a little bit last stream about industry standards, right? There's 1/4-20 screws, which is you know, the measurement of the screw. It's a 1/4 inch wide with 20 threads per inch. That's what that 20 stands for. And then there's 3/8, 16, 3/8 inch shaft with 16 threads per inch. So another standard that you're going to have is the height from the center of the lens or the center of the sensor down to the center of your rails. Now, a lot of cage companies that make different cages and rail systems for cameras, especially as cages get specific to the cameras like they have in the past several years, they're going to make a base plate typically that will get that rail height to the right height for the lens. Now, if they don't, typically what the manufacturers of like a matte box will do, they'll make that rail mounting system be able to adapt to the height of where it works. If it's not quite spot on, maybe it goes up or down a centimeter, give or take. So my plans for what we were doing for grounded was actually just to do it directly on the lenses, because we'll be swapping out lenses. We want to keep it light. This is the lightest matte box in its class, and which is a super nice feature in and of itself. And so I'll show you some more about this here in just a minute. So I use these little rings. Actually, let me pull out. When you get the Basecamp system, it's going to arrive and you're going to have several different boxes and packages that come with it. You're going to get these different, they're called donuts. I wonder why they're called donuts. But they are going to be used to insert into the back of the Basecamp. And for the most part, any matte box is going to have some version of this system. So they just have this tightening knob here. And then this pops out. Got to release it. That'd be smart. Sorry, hard to do in this tight situation. So that pops out and it just pops right in. And it's got this nice little lip here. So you don't have to worry about like sliding it on and actually running into the glass of the filter. And so I really like this system. These are well built, well designed. That basically what's happening here, there's a little cutout in these donuts, and that compresses as you tighten down that knob to compress on your lens. I found that this is a perfect way, because this is so light, and typically the lenses, for the most part, that you're going to be using on a camera like the Komodo, they're not going to be massive. Now, if you're doing something with like an 800mm lens, it's going to be different. But even still, this will be a really light matte box for that situation and will work plenty fine. It's just so quick to get it right on. And because we're going to be hopping from like a rail system to a gimbal to, on a slider as well. So we're doing those different situations where sometimes we'll have rails, sometimes we won't. That's why we're doing a mounting system where it's not reliant just on rails. But if you have any more questions on that, feel free to DM me and I can address that. Regardless, Basecamp's going to be a great matte box. And here's why. So one of the reasons it's able to get so light is because of how you can remove, or well, hold on one second here. This is too tight on this. But they have their own filter system that the filters are basically built into the frame. Typically with a matte box, you're going to have a frame that holds the glass in there. And as such, the glass itself is typically thicker to be supported on its own. But because Polar Pro has the glass built into the frame, the glass can be a little bit thinner, thus the whole thing is much lighter. So it's a cool little system and how it works all together. We have the front flag here, which is, let me get this loosened here. So it's held on a little pivot point. If you don't want the flag, you can pull that out all together, which that's nice to have. But having, I mean, you'll see matte boxes that have top flags and side flags, and all are beneficial. Basically, if you're wondering what a matte box is for, there's huge things online, whether it's just for show, which that serves its value to a client at the right point. So like, I'm not going to argue with that. But the main point of a matte box is 1, to hold filters, 2, to cut down on light entering the lens. So there's times where we want to block certain things, like maybe you don't want the flare coming into your lens, and so you can use those flags to manipulate it. I've found most often that the top flag is more than sufficient to cut off the light, because more often than not, even on a set, your lights are going to be coming from above. It's pretty unnatural for the world that we live in to be lit from below. Now, I'm not saying that that's always the case, but in most cases, your light's coming from above. So if you have your top flag, that's going to be blocking most of those things. So a couple more questions here. Let's see here. Okay, so number 1, for the giveaways, visit Venus Lens, VENUSLENS.net. That's Laowa is one of our sponsors today. So Venus Optics makes Laowa lenses. So go to that site. We'll have more giveaways available. I'm not sure what some of these questions are asking, so I'm going to do my best to answer these here, guys. What attachment do you need? Do I need to mount to do a vertical time lapse? I have a high torque motor. Okay, perfect. So people asking things about the ARC system and being able to do a vertical time lapse. We'll get back to that here in a little bit. If you want to email me, I'll actually address that specifically, as we're just focusing more so on these lenses and filtration in this episode, but we'd love to address that question. Hit us up or DM us on any of the social platforms, and we'll get you squared away. Okay, so this, again, the Polar Pro Basecamp matte box, we'll be giving one of these away at the end of the stream, so looking forward to that. The unique thing to be incorporated into this type of system of matte box, there's only a few that are doing this, and I really like it, is matte boxes are sort of known traditionally to be things that really slow down the production, because 1, they add bulk, 2, they they just are in front of the lens, so you have to remove it to get to your lens when you're wanting to do a lens swap, or 2, even accessing the filter trays can sometimes be difficult. So what I really like that Polar Pro has done, they kind of threw out almost everything beyond like what the intent of a matte box is, and redesigned the use case of it and made it a really interesting experience. So they actually have a variable ND, so you can have this 2 to 5 stops, and then they have a circular polarizer in front of it that varies that amount. So you can kind of hopefully see here, you can get that just by twisting this little knob right here on top, and that scrolls through, and we have the tray, the filter tray here, which then interacts with that. Now they sell a variety of different filter trays, so whatever you need, you can get it to be able to get your shot stopped down in order to be properly exposed. So really neat system. The other thing I really like about this, you can break this down even further. You can take off this hood, and then you basically just have, the filter tray itself and that polarizer. So great little system. If you need it like even lighter than it already is as a complete unit, you can break it all the way down. So we'll be using it in each configuration throughout the shoot, just based on how our camera rig is built out for that given time. Now, if there's any questions specific to the Polar Pro Matte Box, the base camp, and what it comes with it. So you get these cases as well that everything is stored in, and it's really awesome. So that's the base camp. So great cases, great unit, really love it. Next thing I want to talk about is just the lenses that we're using. So like I mentioned, we're using the 12 millimeter, the Laowa 12 millimeter with the zero distortion. Guys, we've got 4 kids working from home here. Looks like we've got a little intruder. So give me just a second as I get this situation under control. 1 sec. Hey, Amy. The world we live in, right, guys? It's interesting how everything's changing, and we got to be able to adapt. It's good to be so close to family, though. I think that's one thing that we can all appreciate. So, okay, the widest diameter. What's the widest diameter ring? Okay, so for the base camp, one of the things you got to keep in mind is, well, for any matte box for that matter, what's the diameter of the mount so that it can fit on a wide range of lens. Cinema lenses, if it's industry standard, the front barrel is going to be 114 millimeters, okay? And so that's what, got a question about, I believe the Canon, let's see, the Canon Cine Primes. So, all right, you know what we can do? I am pretty confident that this is indeed that 114 millimeters accurate. Pull out my fancy friends, calipers. Let's do this live. So we got this zeroed out. Don't want to scratch the glass here. And we are reading 114 millimeters and a little bit of change. And that change is just so that you can have enough room for it to slide on, tighten it up. So in that case, you're butting up right to this outer frame. There are still these little guides that you're going to hit, just like on the donuts, to prevent you from slamming your lens into the glass. So you're still safeguarded from that. I've been really thoughtful in the design there. So you're good to go. Throw them right on those 114 millimeter front barrel lenses, and you're set and ready to take it out. So great question. That's an important one. I know that there are certain matte boxes that are advertised to be that, but are actually smaller. So it's awesome that this lens is indeed spot on in size. Good job, Polar Pro. So, okay. Okay, if the kids come again, we'll get them on the stream. Just always got to be a little careful, you know, you want children and internet and their own choices. And, you know, I just want to be sensitive to that, but they're cute. So if they come in again, I'll do you a favor, throw them on. They're fun. That was actually my youngest. She just turned 2. She's a fiery little redhead. And currently Netflix isn't serving up good enough content right now. So she wanted to join you guys. So next time she comes down, which is pretty much inevitable, we'll have her on. So let's do another giveaway. So we did the first there. So we're going to the next question. So if you're on the site, venuslens.com, and that's lens with an S, or sorry, .net. They make a wonderful probe lens. It's a 2x macro probe lens. What is the focal length of that lens? First person to comment with that, getting a swag kit. Super excited to get that out to you. I'm jealous because I don't get one of these shirts. I mean, I got 10 of them and I'm giving all 10 away. So lucky you guys. Great company, would love to rep them. So you can rep them for me and we can enjoy that along the way. So lenses, we're using the Laowa for those wide shots, but obviously you can't, I mean, you can film an entire film on one lens. It's going to be a distinct look, especially as wide as a 12mm is. We're going to be using that lens. We have a couple spots in our script where we're actually going to use them in back-to-back match cuts. I just was talking to Drew Williams. We did a stream with him last week. I spent some time with him yesterday doing some tests on the Komodo and building out the shot list even more. Now, we have this idea for a match cut where the main character, Owen, he's at this sort of crossroads. He's got his father just passed away within the past 6 months. And then we are introduced to him as we find out he loses his job. In the scene, we have medical bills covering the table, and he finds out he loses his job. So I think like any of us, he'd be at a point of frustration and everything else. And so he walks out of that room and slams his hand. Well, he ends up hitting, he was just intending to hit this cereal box, which would, have a fun effect of throwing the thing all over, and, it creates a mess. But sometimes when you're in that mad state, you just want to make a mess. But he unintentionally actually hits a picture frame, and it's a frame that holds an old picture of his parents at their wedding. And so it's a sentimental item to him, and that frame comes crashing down and breaking. And so at that low point, what we're trying to illustrate is that he's literally just at the lowest we'll see him in the entire story. And so as he's cleaning up his mess, we're going to actually set the camera inside a trash can, shooting straight up, throw some plexiglass over that lens. And as he scoops up the debris of both the broken frame as well as the cereal, he's going to pour that over the lens. That's going to darken the lens. And then we're going to cut to the next scene where it's going to be, we're going to throw the camera, well, not throw, set gently up in a closet on the shelf, this really wide lens to give that perspective where a box of his dad's old possessions is going to be in front of it. So we'll have that black frame again. And as that box pulls away, we'll get that environment showing, okay, we're tied up in the top of this closet. So it'll be really neat. So those are the fun things I'm looking forward to using this lens on. And we'll talk about the other lenses in just a minute, but we've got a winner. So the correct answer is 24mm, that macro probe lens, 24mm. And it is to Saeed Sarouche. So Saeed, congrats, looking forward to that for you. And we also got another question coming in here. Let's see. So does the cost of the large single filters for our matte boxes really trump the front circular filter that normally are cheaper and quicker to use? Just like we talked with Tom, right? There's all things to consider. Luckily, if you're in the Polar Pro camp, which they make really quality products, I've used them and love them. They make both, right? They have the front screw-on filters, and then they have the matte box. Really, they're just trying to achieve two different things. I mean, they have overlap in that you're trying to cut down light hitting the lens, right? So that you can have lower f-stop or t-stop, so you can have more bokeh and depth of field in your shots. But it just depends, because when you're threading things on, when you're fast on set, there can be a lot of things that can happen, right? You can maybe be in an environment where there's dirt, dust, sand, which the threads are so fine on a circular filter that can cause some cross-threading and be tight when you're trying to be such a quick turnaround time. So I find it like a simple system where you have just this one single clamp, and it's just clamping a little bit more rudimentary to the outside of your lens. It's faster. And so if you're looking for speed and or more just coverage to block out light with the flags, it's a great option. Now, circular filters, maybe you have enough circular filters that you have one for each lens. I don't think that that's the case in most people's gear, because they're expensive too. They can be pricier, especially for a nice circular filter. So it really depends on how quick you want to be, how light you want to be, because as light as this matte box is, right, which we'll talk more about that, as light as it is, nothing is going to be lighter than just one piece of glass right in front of the lens. Typically, you're going to get higher quality glass when you are putting it just directly into a matte box, just because it's specialty built for that thing. Versus on the photo side in general, certain accessories are more trying to be built for a range, whereas the glass, it's universal to this unit. And so it's just the engineering and manufacturing and time are spent more to dial in exactly for that. But up to you. Overall, there's, you can go either way. For me, this is one of my common things. No matter what lenses I'm using, I have the Rokinons here. I have a set of their DS Cine lenses. What the DS basically means, and I'll hold this up as an example. And we'll do it reverse to make it easy. So the iris gear and the focus wheel are the same distance apart, those threaded units. So they're standard 0.8 millimeter pitch on the gearing. And so you're not having to move around your motors. Like Tom said on this set of lenses, now these were photo lenses that they put into a cinema housed body. Now these are more plasticky lenses. It's a durable plastic, but it's like, they're not even on the same scale in terms of build quality compared to the Laowa. So that being said, they're a little bit lighter because it's plastic versus machined aluminum. But reason that we're using these is a couple. One, they're really accessible. We already had a kit of them, and so the best gear you have is, or the best thing you can use is the things you already have access to. And we wanted it to feel like a realistic production, because for us to come in and rent a set of Optimas or other set of Cooks or some crazy cinema lenses that can be hundreds of dollars per lens per day, that just doesn't seem as accessible to the vast majority of cruising budgets. And we wanted to create this whole thing based on something that, one, are potential things that you can own, or things that are very accessible in terms of renting and or within your networks being able to potentially borrow. So these lenses definitely fit that bill. Now, they're not perfect lenses. They're fun to use for a lot of different things. Like, they do have a lot of focus breathing. That's where, as you're focusing, it almost feels like it's zooming because that glass is moving and changing between that beginning and end point. And it creates a little bit of that zoom effect. Now, in reality, is it zooming? No, but it is shifting that focus. And so it has that appearance. So I really like these. And going back to that circular filter question, my insurance policy that I use for these is I just put a clear UV haze filter. You can get them. I love V+W because they're just a great brand and a good quality price. Now, this isn't sponsored by them, but I've just used them for years. I find that you can get that filter between $30 and $50, and I have had it be an insurance policy. That's the best insurance policy for any lens. I was using a jib one time, and I was looking too tight at my monitor, and as I was filming, I was panning across, and it was actually filming a biker. And the biker, I told him, get close to the camera. Well, his close to the camera was actually hitting the camera, and it came down. Luckily, he was okay. Camera, not so much. We were able to get it repaired, but that front element broke. Now, if that had been the front element of the lens, it would have been a completely different story. So sorry, I misspoke. Front filter broke. The front element of the lens did not, so we were safe. Anyone that's broken one of these while it's on, it typically means that the filter is going to be harder to get off because the threads are almost jammed. But there's a lot of good solutions on YouTube on how to do that. If you're not comfortable with it, I'm sure that there are camera repair places in your area that would be more than happy to help you out. It's a pretty easy fix and almost always, from my experience, recoverable. Have I used Zine lenses? I've really wanted to for a lot of reasons. Now, the glass in terms of the coatings and the production method is the same. You get the bigger metal bodies though, so you are back at that 114 millimeter front barrel diameter, which is great. Love that, because that just makes like you're not switching out any donuts. Now on these lenses, they're all the same front 77 millimeter threads, which is nice. But those Zine lenses, they're actually all the same length too. And that's back to what Tom was talking about in the last stream, that when you get more into a true cinema lens, you're gonna get more and more standardized measurements between the barrel, the length, and the focus iris and potentially even zoom control. Typically, a cinema zoom isn't going to have a telephotoing portion of the lens, like a telescoping portion of the lens, like on a photo lens. It's going to all be internally, which is nice. So, okay, question. This is a classic question. I'm going to get a little bit, hopefully not too preachy here, but I'll give you my vantage point on this question. And that's, how do you juggle family time and filmmaking? Well, it is a juggle, 100%. So I'm turning, if you want a little Easter egg, the day that the Grounded film premieres, September 29th, that's actually my birthday. So yay, fun. I'm not a huge birthday guy per se, but it's, you know, a good day to remember. And I'm actually excited because I will find this a big celebration. So I'll be turning 31 then. And I got married fairly young and I had kids fairly young. So I have 4 children that are basically 8 and under. So you can imagine we've got our hands full, especially my wife, bless her heart. And so it's a struggle, right? Like there's work, there's demands, there's taking care of those kids and being able to provide for them. But we know what filmmaking is like, right? Like it's long production days. There's long prep. Inevitably, I've never been on a production where it's gone exactly as planned and we've stopped exactly on time or whatever. And we've gotten really, really close sometimes, but most times you're going to end up, something's going to take longer. Maybe it's talent-based performance that they couldn't get it within the window you had planned. And so it's a struggle. But I find if you try and find like equality and balance in all things, you're just going to end up frustrated. What I try and think of more is a harmony, right? We're trying to find a place where, hey, my family is taken care of, but I'm also doing the things I need to when I'm working. Now, it doesn't mean they're getting exact equal times. I don't think that that's even what this question is asking, but you know, it's something you think about in the back of your mind a lot as you're doing these things, like, oh, you know, is this really worth it? Like I could be spending more time with my family and, you know, I won't profess to be perfect at that balance, but what I've found is that I just try and make the most of the time that I do have with my family and be present as much as possible. I'm not perfect at that. I could put away my phone more and stop answering so many emails. I think we're all in that situation. My personal goal that I'm going to be working on is like during a certain window of time when I know I can be with my family, I'm going to put my phone aside. So that's that little tangent around family and work-life balance. If you have any advice around that, I am all ears. So bring it and love to share, because I think that that's something that we're all striving for, is to find greater harmony in our lives, especially with all the crazy things going on. Okay, so before I answer this question, I'm going to do 2 back-to-back questions. So you can make the judgment call of which one to answer strategically. So you can pick one of them or both of them if you're that fast at typing to answer, and we'll get the first of both of these. So how many cinema lenses does Laowa currently offer? So on their site, venuslens.net, how many cinema lenses are under that category? And then what does the 0D stand for? So they have a lot of lenses labeled 0D. What does that D specifically stand for? So as you respond to those, I'm going to bring up this question. If you could only buy one filter and it's your first filter, what would you buy? Now, this to me is much more of a math question, and I'm not even talking budget. This is talking about what lenses do you have, what lenses do you plan on getting, and how do those lenses behave with each other? And what I mean by that is every lens obviously has a front barrel, right? And typically that lens is going to have threads on that barrel to be able to add filters if you're doing a direct filter approach. Okay. There are different size lenses that have different size barrel threads, or in like the Laowa's case, it doesn't have any threads at all. Typically with a more like barreled, like fisheye type front element, you're not going to be able to do screw-on filters anyway. So this kind of falls outside of that category, and that's why matte boxes become more important if you need to cut down the light that way. If you're filming inside, in most cases, you're probably good, but outside, you're either going to have to stop way down with your T-stop or f-stop in that, and if you're using a wide photo lens, or use a matte box like the Basecamp. So the reason I say it's about finding that the least common denominator. There we go. So what we do, like if I have I look at my biggest lens filter. So like the 72 to 200, I believe it just changed from Canon to a 77mm filter. Could be wrong there, so feel free to fact check me. But it used to be 82mm, and that's the one I've used most, the version 1 and version 2. Now that's bigger than 77mm, and so you can use brief intermission. You can purchase these guys. These are little step down or step up rings. And so if you just look on Amazon, these things are like really, really cheap. Like you're typically looking $5 to $10 for any of these, and they have a wide range. Now, typically if you're stepping down, you're not going to have an issue with vignetting or anything, because if you're using a smaller lens, that glass is going to be clearly bigger. Now, if you start stacking a bunch of like NDs on top of that, you could worry about vignetting. Vignetting is when it's going to darken around the edges. So that may be a look you're going for, but in most cases, if you're doing that, I tend to either try and get that look in camera with like a more vintage lens, or doing it in post, because then you have ultimate control of it. But that's just a stylistic preference. So if all your lenses are not the same, get a handful of these, and I love using all the same size. In my case, I am pretty much standardized on that 77mm. If there's a big range, like it's a much smaller lens and you don't want to have like kind of a big front cap on that, because then I actually use that. I use that step down ring, and then I put that UV haze filter on front, and then I have all the same size lens caps too. It just makes it convenient. That way, if you're having to be really quick, you can swap around, make sure the lens is covered and protected, but it's all the same cap. And then I actually label most of my caps with the focal length on them. But if, for whatever reason in the hustle and bustle, the wrong lens gets the wrong cap, that's fine, because it'll still fit. So that'd be the first step. And then I personally started just with flat stop, like ND filters. So like a 2-stop, 4-stop, 6-stop. And that was a great way to be able to understand the principles of exposure better for me. And it's going to be much cheaper than like as cost effective as like the Polar Pro Basecamp is. It is more of an investment, right? Like you can get lenses for that cost. But then again, this works across all your lenses and will work as you switch to different camera platforms and other things. So it becomes a long-term choice. So hopefully that answers your question. After you figure out what filter size you need to be using, then it's just a matter of where you want to go. Now, I would say there are certain brands, and this goes back to, again, what Tom said earlier, read reviews, because you don't want to buy the cheapest thing, because you spend all this money on your camera, you spend this money on your lenses, and you can ruin the image by throwing in a cheap filter. Whether that's even just a UV haze filter, maybe you're starting to see some elements pop up on your image because the glass isn't clear enough, or you buy a variable ND that's not a well-made one. There's sort of this pattern that at certain rotations of that, it can create like an X shape across corner to corner, which that makes it pretty much unusable unless you're going for a very stylized shot that has an X through every shot. Typically not something I'm going for. There we go. We got some kids. Hopefully you're hearing that action. We got the piano room right above us, and so that's just lovely. The piano bench is now a scooter for a child. So hopefully that's not affecting the audio too much, but if it is, I'm sorry, that's part of the balance. Okay, another question here. Oh wait, let's go back. So we had question 3, how many cinema lenses do they have? And Lawa sells 6 cinema lenses. So that winner goes to Chris Moltop from Facebook. And then the next winner for the 0 distortion question, that goes to Pie Gingerbread. So DM us with your info and we'll get those kits out to you. So Chris Moltop and Pie Gingerbread, that's just making me hungry. And so I don't fully appreciate that because now I just want pie and gingerbread and my tummy is growling. So now you're gonna pick up another noise, but is what it is. So thank you. I guess I know what I'm having for a very unhealthy dinner here in a little bit. The final question that we're gonna ask for the giveaway for the Lawa gear is gonna be what's the T-stop of the 12mm cinema lens? So the Lawa 12mm, what's the T-stop? If you're coming from the photo world, that'd be like equivalent of the f-stop. So it's gonna be a number with a decimal. And so send that and we'll get that winner picked. And here very shortly, we will do the question for the Polar Pro Basecamp. So as we get in here, I'm gonna look at this one other question. Okay, great question. Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to think of the best way to approach this. So again, awesome question. How do you approach finding the correct filter or lens to mimic the look of a favorite movie or show? Okay, something I often love to do. Love to do research on what lenses were used, just because lenses are one of the things that provide some of the most character in what the image looks like, right? I mean, even our human eyes, right? Certain people are colorblind and there's like a skew of different types of colorblindness. So even people see color rendition differently with their lenses, right? So lenses do a lot to change that. Of course, there's things we can do in post to create certain effects and different things, but I love doing it in camera as much as possible. Is there a site or essential resource that I'd recommend to show, or is it just a matter of trial and error? I'd say it's a combination. There's a ton of great lens tests that are done by different groups. Trying to remember offhand. The best, so this is a great little plug here, so my apologies, but I'm going to plug it. So if you go to yourstorymatters.rhinocameragear.com, we have a resources page. One of the resources, and these are all resources that we've built and developed. I've personally used them for years and improved on them over and over throughout that time. But you can go in there, get all those resources for free. They're shot list docs, permitting type things in terms of releases for talent and location, as well as one of them is just a resource that has a lot of links to things that I found particularly helpful to different film questions like this. So one of my favorite tools, it actually can't remember, it's a frame grab. I can't remember the URL offhand, so I'll put it in the comments, but it's definitely in that resource. It takes screenshots from movies like over the past century and puts them in there. So that gives you the image to use as a reference point. And I love that because then you're not having to go through and find the clip, skim it, and do whatever. It's all there. Sorry, allergies are killing me this time of year, and allergies are no friend to streaming. So I'm either getting really emotional because I love lenses so much, or it's allergies, and it's a combination of both. So the thing I love to do, you take that image and then you start to break it down. And the way to break down the characteristics of the lens I've most frequently found is going to be one on those edges. Like, what's that distortion range? Like, is there are the edges really out of focus? And I'm not talking about just bokeh in general. Like, if an item in that image is at the same plane as what is in as the subject that is in focus, is it still out of focus? Because some lenses, as you get closer to the edge, it's going to be more and more out of focus. And so that's one characteristic to look for. Two, how does it handle the highlights? There's going to be a certain amount of roll off on how those highlights are exposed. And then the third big element is going to be, how does the bokeh render? So depending on the amount of blades in the iris, you're going to get different shapes of bokeh. So bokeh is the out of focus area in the back, typically, or foreground, depending on what you're focusing on. So a lot of times you're watching movies and it's at night, maybe they're on a pier, and in the background there's a ship that has lights on. Those lights, which are really small in reality, maybe the size of a light bulb, are going to appear more like the size of a basketball because of that bokeh effect. Now, you can get really round bokeh, you can get more hexagonal, or more like edged bokeh, or more oval. The reason the oval's coming in is because they're more than likely using an anamorphic lens. And so what's happening there is an anamorphic lens is shooting that image. It's actually stretching it to an oval so that when you compress it, it's going to stretch out that bokeh. So it was more round as you were shooting it, but then it's going to compress it down to be this flat line, and that'll create, some of those kind of J.J. Abrams types of elements in your image. So those are things that you use to keep in mind. Just look for those things and refer to that resource page. But break down that image first off. There is going to be some trial and error. There are different filters. One of the filters that we'll use on the shoot, speaking specifically to creative filters, is a black pro mist filter. Basically what's going on there is it is putting in little speckles of black in the filter that we're going to put in front of the lens in this case. And what's that's doing is, as the highlights hit it, they actually roll off to where they kind of glow more. Now there's different levels. There's like an 1/8 stop, 1/4 stop, 1/2 stop, and full stop. If you get a full stop of pro mist, it's going to be like really blooming highlights. And so it's going to be a very strong effect. We're going to use the 1/4 pro mist black filter. That's probably the most commonly used one, that and the 1/8. But check that out. If you have questions about that, you can hit me up, or there's a ton of YouTube videos on different tests with that type of filter. So hopefully that helps to give you some direction on that. So we've got the first person who got back with that answer on the T-stop. The correct answer is T 2.9. That's decently wide open. I mean, from a photo perspective, you're going to be used to that 2.8 number, which we'll see on a lot of higher end constant aperture range lenses, especially if it's a zoom lens and you're getting that type of aperture. That's a really quality lens. Now, typically the wider lens you go, the aperture is going to just get higher. And that's fine, because when it's a wider lens, you want more things in focus naturally. You're not trying to go for this really dynamically set and plain shot. Now, the cool thing about these Laowas that I love, where that 2.9 really comes into play awesomely, is the minimum focus distance on this lens is like 4 inches, maybe even less. So that's like 100 millimeters, right? And so just a tiny little distance. And so you can be right by that lens, have that thing tack sharp, but then the background, because it is further away, becomes, very out of focus. But on the other end, that means everything past, the tick mark right before infinity focus is 5.35 feet. So that's, most times you're filming a subject, they're going to be about 5 feet away from the lens. So pretty much at that point, most things are going to be in focus. And because you're on a wide lens, that's typically the look you're going for. So that winner, long story getting to that point, so thanks for sticking with me, is Nicholas Bolas, or Nicole, Nicol, Bolas, Bolas. So thank you for participating in that. We're going to get these kits off. Now, this is production week, so don't hold it against me if it ships out next week. I promise you've got your names down and we'll get these out to you. But we've got a lot on our hands, and so we'll make it happen as soon as possible. So going just here, if you have any last questions here, we're going to be wrapping up the stream here in just a minute. But we do have the Polar Pro Basecamp to give away. I'm really excited about whoever gets this, because it is truly a quality piece of gear from all the different components. And I just watched Jurassic Park with the kids, talking about family. Now, as I'm a parent, one of my favorite things, not so much to watch the movie, is to watch my kids' reaction to it. So Jurassic Park was a huge, such an influential movie to me. I actually recently went back to my parents' house, and they still have all their VHS collection because, you know, we all watch VHSs so much these days. But for real, no, it's great that they still have them because I want to use them for something actually. But they, like tons of the movies, and my parents are not film people per se, but they're all like, there was probably a dozen Steven Spielberg movies, and I'm like, no wonder I'm such a huge fan of Spielberg and the work that he's done. Uh, but one of the lines in Jurassic Park that I've always loved is when the lawyer asks Tim, what is that? Where'd you get it? And he's like, I don't know, I found it in the back of the car. He's like, well, is it heavy? Yes. Well, then it's expensive. Now, I think that the price of the Polar Pro is really fair, and it is also very light for what it is, but you can tell the quality and care that went into this piece, and there's so many different components. That's the thing that I think about, is how many parts does the thing have? And if there's a lot of parts, it's a quality product, and all the things that went into it. Now, they've been able to streamline as much of this as possible and get it into as few parts, but there's still a lot going on here in terms of, you know, everything that comes with it, from the great cases to all the different donuts and so forth. So getting an awesome piece of kit here. So I hope whoever wins it uses it, loves it, and shouts out some love to Polar Pro, because great prize, and happy to have them part of it. Happy to be shooting with this for Grounded. So with it being said, we're looking at one number here. We're looking at a number that can be found on polarprofilters.com. So that's Polar Pro's website. Check it out. There's been a lot of great questions about filters themselves, whether you're looking at a base camp for your matte box solution, or you're looking for just a thread-on filter. They make both. They make them even for drones. I've loved my Polar Pro filters for my DJI drones. They're great. They're light, and the main thing I look for in any filter is how it affects the color shift, and those are always spot on the drones. So the number we're looking for on their site, this is the lightest matte box in its class. So how many grams does it weigh? First person to tell me how many grams the base camp unit weighs is going to be the winner. Man, I'm eager with anticipation for this. So hit me up in the comments, and we will get this base camp out to you. Man, on it. We got him coming back for another round of winning, because he's on the keys. He knows what he's doing. So Chaz Dillon, congratulations. You have won won the question. It looks like you're so good at it, you even answered before I fully finished it. You knew the number. So very good. I am happy for you, Chaz, and look forward to seeing all the things that you shoot with this, and use it as a tool. Like I said before in the previous stream, the filmmaking, there's so many things that we could classify as like these toys because they're fun. But I see everything that we use to make films as tools. And they're tools to get this means to an end of creating the best images possible. And it's just so fun. It looks like Chaz, we're fellow friends here with Komodos. So we hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. Let's trade any notes, make sure that we're using this camera right, making awesome images, but happy that this is going to be going out to you, and they'll be filming with that. So very, very fun. Well, this brings us to the end of today's stream. Again, huge shout out to both Lawa and Polar Pro. Thank you for being a part of this. We really believe this whole project is all about sharing your stories and giving a voice to those who may not feel like they have it, or may not feel like they have the budget or other things to be able to bring these things to life. We wanted to do that for you, and we're going to show you the whole way along how to do this, answer as many questions as possible. And so thank you for participating in today's streams. We've got 3 more coming up, which if I thought 2 was crazy, 3 is just bonkers. So Thursday, we've got great streams coming up with Aperture, with Rode, and then you're going to get me again, but we're going to be on location for Grounded, and it's going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to have a ton of fun. And then on Friday, we'll bring you on set a step further as we're filming with the talent. We'll have someone there that's going to give us all the behind the scenes there. We'll be doing an in-depth behind scenes video as well. So be looking forward to all that. After this whole project's wrapped, for that matter, we're going to be doing a whole other series breaking down each episode of what it took to make this film. And so we'll use elements of these live streams. We'll use more elements that we film, and of course the production itself. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. Look out for that as a learning resource. The best way to stay in touch is to like, subscribe, and follow us. So give us some love. Sorry, you know, this wasn't a perfect stream. We had some interruptions, but we had some fun. I'm happy. I hope you're happy. I hope you're safe. I hope you're having a great day, and get out there and shoot some stuff. Let's go have some fun and make stories, and make stories, importantly, that matter. And so we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Look forward to giving away more things to you to help you take your stories further. And so until next time, we'll see you. Have a good one.